time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I'm here to let you know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. Yes, it is. Views expressed are those of the speakers, they are, and are not intended to represent WRFU, UCIMC, Urbana Socialist Forum, or, as we like to say on the televised version of this show, UPTV. So, whose views are these? Well, these views are our own. And by our, in this instance, if not in any other, I mean myself and my charming guests who will hopefully introduce themselves now.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bahler. I'm a Brooklyn-based journalist, and I'm visiting Central Illinois, and where I'm from, actually, and visiting my family.
Aha.
Hi, Mugiko again. I came from Japan, and last week also I came here, Immigration Forum.
Arigato.
So,
Arigato gozaimasu.
hi.
Well, welcome, both of you. Oh, boy, this is like really loud for some reason.
Loud?
Well, it's showing up. Never mind. Don't worry. It's my job. I have to do this.
Phew.
I have to make it work. I mean, you sound okay. It's just like I've got lights going off all over the place. Anyway, welcome, both of you. So you have family here, you say?
I do, yeah. I'm originally from Fairbury, Illinois, which is a
Where
town that no
the
one has
hell-
ever heard
Oh,
of.
sorry. I mean, of course I know where Fairbury is.
Yeah, it's
Sure,
like
it's right there.
I tell people from Brooklyn that I'm from Chicago, but I'm actually 2.5 hours south of Chicago in a tiny little farming town that almost no one has heard of. But yeah, I'm back. I saw Hamilton a couple nights ago, which
In
was
Fairbury?
the highlight of my in Chicago.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Imagine though, imagine.
It could happen. The Fairbury Theater, that's a pretty famous spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
Yep.
And what did you think?
What did I think about the
Hamilton.
play?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. So I was fully prepared to kind of hate it, and
Really?
yeah, I assumed that it was overrated and
No, because everybody likes it. It must be,
Yeah.
yeah.
hyped up and all that. And, I mean, our president says it's overrated, so it must.
Well, it must be,
true.
yeah, because he never speaks anything but the
Exactly.
truth. Yes.
Especially on Twitter. So,
Right.
but in fact, I loved it. I thought it deserved all of the hype that it got, and yeah,
Wow.
it's not a very nuanced take to love Hamilton, but that is mine.
Okay. So you loved it.
Yeah.
Cool. That's wonderful. And here you are in Urbana. Sorry. Champaign and Urbana. They're kind of interchangeable, but we need to be precise about these things because who knows? It may matter at some point. I have no idea. And you are from Japan.
Yes.
Hi.
はい。
Welcome. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
よろしくお願いします。
Well, welcome to the show again.
Again.
And you are a professor of anthropology, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Hi. Sensei.
先
We
生
will
at
call-
Kona University.
Yeah, we have to
Kobe.
call her sensei because she's
Yeah.
a professor.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we were talking as we came over here this evening about, I mentioned something about, well, I didn't know how you wanted to be introduced, how you wanted to be introduced. And then we were talking about the different ways that people introduce themselves around the world, like what is appropriate information to share. I think you were saying, that age was a really common thing to share in Japan?
Age is very sensitive, nervous. I cannot.
In Japan?
Yeah, in
Really?
Japan, I cannot ask easily how old are you.
Oh,
not
really?
directly.
Anybody?
Anybody, yeah.
Oh.
But in the newspaper, all newspapers, if you talk something, it's Mr. Garza, age 50. 60, well, like
Whatever.
that.
Whatever. We don't have
But
to be
here,
too
the
specific.
newspapers, they don't say the age much.
Uh-huh.
But in newspaper in Japan, sometimes people refer to age.
Uh-huh.
But the daily lives, we don't ask.
But they don't, huh? Well, how about Brooklyn or well, you work as a journalist, you said.
I do.
When you talk to people, is that something you ask them? And is it comfortable or is that weird?
It really depends. I think it depends on the type of publication that I'm writing for. Some of the old school pubs that have been around for, decades to hundreds of years, it's commonplace to put an age with whoever you quote. It's almost as if like you're proving that they exist. Yeah. But in some like new media publications and the online, magazines that I write for, it's not as common to list someone's age.
It's interesting, but if you think about it, though, that's one of many markers that we use to say, well, here's something about me. Like if I met you at a cocktail party and I said, oh, my name's Tom, I do X, it would almost inevitably follow that I would have to say what I did for a living or some other activity that I was involved in that would define for you what I was, not who I was necessarily, but what I was. And I just think that's interesting that we do that, because it doesn't necessarily say as much about a person as you might think it was, but it does at least provide sort of a, you have this vast range of possibility. It kind of goes, okay, somewhere over here is this person, and somewhere over here is this person, If I told you she was, I think the analogy I used earlier was a baker, then you go, oh, I like to cook. So you would immediately start talking about cooking. If I tell you that she's a teacher, you might never get around to talking about cooking, although she likes to cook. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's interesting how we both define and confine the definition of ourselves by how we choose, what information we choose to share about ourselves.
Absolutely. And so when you're at a cocktail party, what do you tell? What's your elevator pitch about yourself?
See, that's the thing that's really hard for me. Most of my life, I was a musician. I started out like 12 years old or something, being a musician. So that wasn't just what I did, that's what I was. That's how I thought of myself. After years and years of traveling, doing all this stuff, and I got so sick of it, so sick of the self-absorption necessary to have a career as a, hi, I'm on stage, look at me, be interested in me, think about me, that kind of thing. And any number of other reasons that I just quit. I didn't quit playing music, but I just quit. That wasn't my job anymore. I'm just like, I'm not pursuing a career in music. And then I went through a really long period of not having any idea how to say who I was. I eventually got a job. I worked as an illustrator, but I wasn't an illustrator. It was something I did to make money. So I would never say, well, I'm an illustrator. I would say, well, I'm just a person, and, I just couldn't figure out how, because I couldn't call myself an illustrator. I didn't think of myself as that. I wasn't an artist. So now, I'm not sure. I think I would probably say that I work with a couple of nonprofits and leave it at that. Let people ask me about what those were, and then that would give me an opportunity to talk about why I cared about those things. You know what I mean? Just use that as kind of a gateway, half information in order to elicit further questions, which would then maybe get to something pertinent rather than just whatever. But you have, on occasion, said that you did not want to be introduced as a professor.
Yeah. Usually
why
I
is
don't
that?
say the. That's when I started Harukana Show. Harukana Show, a Japanese radio show from WRFU, and then already 6-7 years ago, and then I feel more free from my positions. So if I said in my research in the anthropological fieldwork, in the research, if I said I'm professor anthropology to the people, I don't have anything to talk with you like that.
Right.
But I am host of Harukana Show. And don't you come? Don't you join us? Then the people more easily to talk with me, more be relaxed and talk. So I feel to become the host of a Harukana Show, I feel more free and expand myself to and easy to touch with people, and people also open mind like that. So I don't use in the radio show at least. The radio show I don't use I'm professor, not like that.
So
I'm just a host, Mugiko.
Too much baggage or weight that goes along with that, too many expectations and
Expectations, that's but just keep more distance from people. So that's my opinion. In my experience. So I love to suggest host of Harukana show. I'm Mugiko. That's a bit not Professor Nishikawa.
Right.
Like that.
Right. So when you say you're a journalist, do people get their guard up? Like, I have to watch what I say because you're going to like take my words and twist them around with your fake news stuff and and whatever, what I mean. Do people become defensive thinking that you're a journalist, so you're after something from me, you want my story or my information or something for you to make money off of?
A little bit. I think that they can see the way that my eyes light up when I get new information and I'm talking to someone about something that I know nothing about, and then I'm asking a million other follow-up questions, and you see like the wheels going, and I'm like, all right, we're just talking at a bar. This is not going in a story, right? And sometimes it does.
Yeah. But I won't tell you.
Yeah. No, that's not true. I just love, I said before we were rolling that I love telling other people's stories, and when I have those cocktail conversations, I kind of clam up when it comes to talking about myself because I'm just not all that interested, I'm interested in other people's stories.
So you two have a lot in common right there. That's something, because she has told me on more than one occasion, like, you mentioned going to like craft fairs or antique stores and particularly craft fairs or places where artists are creating something and then finding out why. Well, I don't have to tell your story for you.
About craft
like,
fair.
why do you like to talk to the people that make things?
I don't understand what that.
You like to go to like the craft show.
Craft in Japan.
Yeah.
Handcraft show sometimes. We have the handcraft market, like farmers market, especially in the temple gardens. Every 15th, every month like that. I love to go there because that's the vendor, the person who sells their art. There is sometimes amateur or semi-amateur professional mixed 400 booths like that, and people also come join, and then how can I say, they start to talk each other. Each other means, like this, that's a T-shirt, it's a very good printing. I watch the T-shirt. Then the next customer will say, yeah, I recommend it. That's fit to you. I have the very cute ones. So then the vendor also started talking. Yeah, do you know there is a story in this T-shirt? So I will explain. That's a conversation starting naturally, and so such kind of conversation I so love. So in Japan also, even here, I will go markets like that. But if it is research, it is not easy to talk like that sometimes. Field work.
Yeah, so which brings us to another point, that there's a similarity and a difference between what each of us does here. So my main profession is not a radio host, but we'll for the sake of argument say that I am a host of a radio show. So I interview people. That's one kind of interviewing, that I'm trying to like get you to talk about yourself and exchange information about a particular topic. As a journalist, you're doing another kind of interview, and you're trying to get me, say, to talk about myself and tell you things that are related to the story you're trying to write, right? I mean, it's not just random stuff like, well, I had a turtle when I was 3, like, okay, let's get back to this topic here, And as an anthropologist, you're trying to get information about something that you're researching, so all sorts of different things might be related to it, and you don't. So you just sort of what? Do you hoover up or vacuum up all sorts of just whatever, and then you go through later and decide what has bearing, or how do you do it? I mean, how do each? I guess my question is, how do each of us go about getting what we want from people we talk to? So I'm looking at you, so I guess I'm asking you.
I think the interview, two kinds of interview. One is I have some purpose, and I want to ask some questions. I want to get answer about that. So, for example, I want to research about the grassroots media. So
Right.
I want to know the history of the WRFU,
Right.
when it starts, and why people setting up did set up such kind of small radio studio. Such kind of easy to answer because that's a fact.
Yeah,
when
just
started and what's
Specific
reason.
information. Yeah.
Such kind of question also. But the other, that's a easier introduction to ask. But the other way is, I want to know the background of the person, history of the individual history.
Right.
Each person's why that it's difficult because I don't know the Mr. Garza's when you were born and the career of musician. The such kind of person why drop in the activities of the immigration forum.
Right.
And it is easier to ask about the immigration forum, but it is not easier to ask the individual experience and the motivation like that. But my work, my interviews, the final purpose to touch the information which I don't know, I didn't know. So anything I didn't know, the background and also culture, different culture. So my experience in Japan. So I have no experience in US or politics in US.
Right.
So I cannot touch if I don't ask you, but I don't know how to ask. But the dialogue lead me to your world. But it is so difficult to enter and dig into your world. So, but it is easier, the clear question, when you started.
Yeah.
Such kind of question is easier.
Yeah.
So two kind of interview, different way. And to make a dialogue, it takes a time.
Yeah.
And I just wait and talk whether the weather. Recently the summer is so hot. But last time I came here, there's a dry. So how about you when you were a child like that?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Like this. Did you have the air condition? No. Not so cold, not so hot, like that. Then the starting a little by little, just little by little,
So
the background and like, did you have a camp in your childhood?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Like that. Then the very slowly, but it takes more time.
Yeah.
So it is not like radio show, just 15 minutes or
Right.
just 1 hour, not like that.
Yeah.
But it takes more time, few years sometimes to talk with people.
Well, you don't have a few years to talk to people, so is that similar to what you do, or sort of different? I mean, it seems like the same general idea. I want information, but I also want to know the person.
Yeah. Usually I don't really have too much of an interviewing style. I kind of just talk to people the same way as I talk to my friends and family. And I find that usually people will let their guard down if they see that I'm just a normal person, I don't have my journalist hat on.
Right.
I'm just someone that is like very interested in them and what they're doing. And that served me really well. I don't know if you've ever had those instances where you meet someone. I keep saying a bar. I promise that's just the.
I remember a bar.
It
I don't remember.
keeps
it,
coming
but
into
I
my
remember.
head. Don't read anything into this.
Right.
But you'll meet a stranger and you'll
Yeah.
end up after an hour of talking, like, reveal some things about yourself that you wouldn't even reveal to your closest friends, just because you have this, like, instant rapport. And that's kind of like what if I had a style, I guess that would be my interviewing style, just instant comfortability.
So do you have just this perfect memory, or how do you recall all the necessary details later when you're trying to work into a story?
Tape recorder, usually.
So you just kind of click it in your back pocket?
Absolutely not. Yeah, that would be yeah, that's actually...
Just don't mind this. I'm just holding this here.
Right. No, well, in most states, that's actually highly illegal.
Probably is, but...
I always let people know before I click on my recorder. And, it's just like I use an app on my phone, so it really isn't, like, you know.
So just kind of...
Yeah,
you mind if I record
exactly.
it?
Totally.
So and then you forget about it. It's just sitting there. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's pretty good. Interesting.
How about you? When you have a radio show, or you are activist and also the host of the radio show. So when you starting talking, more guests, it is the first time to come to the studio. So how do you do?
My technique, I'm probably giving it away here, but it is to get you to tell me something by telling you something about myself first. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a topic we might be talking about. Well, let's like this topic right here, I guess. I might tell you some anecdote about myself. I'll bring up the topic that I want to discuss, and then I'll tell you something about me, which almost inevitably makes you want to respond with a story about you. You know what I'm saying? So you were talking about revealing things about yourself to people. That's how you get people to tell you things about themselves. You don't get it by saying, well, do you have any childhood trauma that you're trying to... They're like, oh, what do you mean? They just immediately shut down. But if you say, oh, man, when I was a kid, I had a pet, but one day the neighbor came and just shot him with a gun, and it was just the most traumatic thing. And then they'll go, oh my God, I know what you mean. And they'll instantly tell you a story about themselves that was traumatic, that they would never have told you in a million years if you had not volunteered that first. So I guess for me, the idea is it's fair. If I want you to tell me something about me, I will tell you something about myself. And then that way we end up exchanging these things, and it's an even trade, and you don't walk away going, God, I feel like I think I said too much. It's more like, well, so did he, so I guess it was, it must have been okay. In this context, that was okay. And since we're on the air live or whatever, and I'm doing it here, then it must be okay to do it here because he did it. So, I guess that's what you do when you get into this place. So I guess that would be my technique. If I can be said to have a technique, which I don't. It's entirely natural. There's nothing studied about what I do. But if I had a technique, that would be it. Something like that. Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah. We also the radio show like that.
Do you do that on your? I don't understand enough Japanese to know what you're doing.
Sorry.
What's your technique on here?
He is engineering for Haruka no show,
Yeah.
but the Haruka no show just talk in Japanese.
Oh.
So more than 300 times he came to support Haruka no show, but he didn't know what we are talking. I'm very sorry.
I get very sleepy here. I'm just like, what? Oh, song.
yeah. But first, usually, Japanese, how do you observe people usually?
When they come into the studio? Yeah, they're usually kind of formal.
Formal. But the Haruka no show gives the music also like that. So that's last half of the show, the guest talk. But half of the first talk, 30 minutes, just relax, music and talk like that. During the 30 minutes, usually people be relaxed, listen, and we just talk. Talk not about him or about her, but just weather and the information, the local information like that. During that time, usually persons become be relaxed.
Well, one of your techniques, which I know I will give away here to all the listeners, is that you ask guests before they come on to give you a song that they want you to play. So once you've played their song, you have entered into their world. You've given something, it's like, oh, well, this is my favorite song, and we just played it. So now I'm in this mood that I get in from listening to the song, and then we can talk about stuff, talk about the song. Why did you like that song? Well, I love that song because, and you're already opened up by sharing the song, and then you move from there. So I think that's kind of a ploy, if you will, to getting people to open up or to feel a little more comfortable or a little more sense of ownership about the conversation.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's important. You've got to, if you want cooperation or collaboration with somebody, you have to give them some ownership. You can't get collaboration on something that you own entirely by yourself. And that's where I think most interviewers go vastly out of the way. I mean, I hear interviews all the time where it's just this like, you've got a list of stuff and you can tell the person is not listening to the answer. They go, so how long have you been doing this? And then you talk for a while and they go, okay, so what's next? And it's just like, that's not a conversation. There's nothing. It's like I'm just pulling things out of you and sticking them in my pockets and then walking away. There's no, it's nothing of, it's all of you there. I mean, it's all you thrown there, but you don't own any of it anymore. It's just, it's taken away. It's given away. And so I think that that's a really, really bad way to interview. And I hear it all the time. So it's a very common way to interview. But
another basic important thing is I should be relaxed by myself. I am, so intentions is where, example, to give the lecture. Before that, intention, the beginning of my experience.
Right.
10 minutes, I will go bathroom, like that. The seminar, so first year of my, when I got the job, first year, I'm so intention. So my student says, Sensei, you should be relaxed more. Like the student said, like that.
Oh, that's bad.
I'm sorry. But
Calm down. Calm
like
down.
that. Then if I am intention, there's a guest also intention.
Yeah.
So I learned from the show. I could enjoy. Then if I enjoy the show by myself, then the guest also enjoys. So that's a basic things. So to share the atmosphere. So indeed I enjoy, and I really love to listen to people. Each person different story they have, but I don't know the story itself. But talking, there's a story coming up. Then I was moved. I am moved. So the story, to touch the story, and the usually a speaker, not the professional, so usual person. They start talking, and then they find themselves. Oh, my story is cool. Oh, I did hard work and I'm here. So that I'm great. It means people encourage themselves to talk. And then they find themselves, even the 15 minutes, even the 20 minutes short talk. So I feel very happy to listen, to share their story.